Good morning. Welcome to Ask the Expert from Intuit QuickBooks, the daily series from 8:30 to 9 a.m. To help small businesses understand these current times that we're in. If you want to ask any questions throughout this session, then please feel free to stick some comments in the boxes below, or if you're on Twitter, you can hashtag Q8, which is QBATE, and that's if you're on Twitter. My name's Johann and I am the Managing Director for JGBC. We're an accounting firm based up in Scotland. We have been going for about 3 years now and are completely cloud-based. So we have team members dotted throughout the UK, all work from home. So we were very much ready and systems set up for the lockdown now we've been put in. Which has been causing a lot of difficulties for a lot of our clients. And the last 2 weeks, we've been pretty much spent sitting, listening to the government's press releases, analysing the government's online updates, and speaking to HMRC directly over the phone. So just for while we get some questions in, I wanted to just go through and really highlight the support that's out there at the moment. Over the last 2 weeks, there's been lots of headline statements from the Chancellor on TV, but unfortunately, there's been very little detail behind it, which has meant that we've been trying to analyse and work out quite how these new systems and processes are going to work, purely because small business owners, quite rightly, have now got questions. They want to know how they're going to implement this support financially into their business. But the government's been a bit slow on getting that to us, but it's now drip feeding out quite quickly. So we have got the main financial support from the business. We've got from a business point of view, the main one is the furloughing of staff. So if you've got any employees that are on the payroll before the 28th of February, you can put those onto furlough and you'll be able to claim 80% of their wage back from HMRC. That system's currently being built and tested by HMRC. Because of the type of system it is a brand new build for them. So it's going to take some time to get ready and go. But HMRC was saying the other day that it is now in testing. And what we've also seen over the last 24 hours is a lot more detail behind who will and won't be able to make that claim, how to make that claim. So we're now pretty much ready for that claim to be made once the system's made live. The other main relief that we're seeing a lot of small businesses saying they're now getting is the small business rates relief. So if you've got a rateable value under £15,000, it varies from Scotland to England slightly, then you can get £10,000 grant. Those applications started going in 10 days ago, and money, depending on your council, is starting to roll out. It is a council dependence funding programme, so every council is doing it slightly differently. Some have put out forms, some have contacted you directly, some have made an online form, some are turning around within 10 working days and issuing the money, others are taking a bit longer. Some of the issues we're starting to see come back from our customers are their applications are being declined, and that's because the details aren't matching up. So the councils are trying to do this as quickly as they can. But what they're doing is they're looking at your application form and where your address, you may have written your business address, but the bank account might be tied to your personal address, or you may have asked for a check to be sent to your personal address. And because those details are conflicting each other and not quite what's on record, the councils are writing back saying, we need to clarify some things. So if you do get a letter or an email from your council saying, we can't quite match up these details, don't take that as it's a no full stop. Get back in touch with them and ask them how that works. The other main bit for businesses is VAT has been deferred automatically, so you don't need to call HMRC about that. It's just done. But you can defer corporation tax payee taxes as well, but that needs to be done manually. So you need to call HMRC on their coronavirus helpline, which I haven't got noted down, but we'll get it put out on social media later. And you need to call them directly and ask them for the deferment. It's been really, really supportive, that line. They've been very understanding. They're as much in the same boat as we are. They don't know when this is going to end. They don't know how long it's going to go for. And they don't know what's coming around the corner support-wise either. So they're just doing the best they can. However, the lines are exceptionally busy. So they did put 2,000 people onto these lines to start with. However, they've got a lot of illness, they've got social distancing they've had to support as well. So they've got a very, very high demand phone line to not as many people as we would like to see potentially. Okay, so that's the main areas of support at the moment for businesses. I'm just going to answer a couple of questions that are coming in. So we've got Alex from Twitter for a direct message. I'm working from home now. What is this working from home tax back thing? £6 a week doesn't sound like much, but I'll take anything I can get. So when you work from home as an employee, you're able to claim some tax back on your working from home costs. So in effect, if you think of it this way, you are renting or your employer is renting an office space from you. Okay, so the £6 a week that comes back to you from your HMRC from a tax reclaim, which would be a P87 form normally, would be to help offset some of the extra costs. So you might use more electricity in the house because you're home all day compared to if you were in the office. You might use more heating, more water. Your phone usage may go up. So that tax offset is there to support that. But what I'd recommend is before going to HMRC and getting the bare minimum, talk to your employer about a reimbursement of expenses. They may have a work from home policy already. If not, it's worth certainly chatting through with your employer. So because all my team work from home automatically, they get a monthly allowance for working from home to go towards their bills, which is worked out against the government's recommended daily allowance. So they get X amount in their payslip every month, full stop, for the privilege of working from home to help fund the increased usage of electricity, heating, internet, etc. So we've got another message here from Aaron on Facebook. Hi Johann, as a practice owner, have you got any tips for what we can do to offer to clients as support in times like this? So the team and I at JGBC over the last 2 weeks have taken in excess of 400 phone calls. We have been supporting clients through the phone and email, very traditional. We've been Facebook messaging people, we've been WhatsApping people, we've had Zoom calls, we've had Facebook live calls, we've had chats in groups, various groups, we've been emailing out support documents and updates from the government. Basically, just because you can't be in the office and have that face-to-face meeting with them, don't disappear. We've had a lot of inquiries about various questions on what the government are doing from people that have got other accountants, and they're just saying, my accountant's disappeared off the face of the earth. I can't get hold of them. We get everyone's busy, but you've got to be proactive, and you can't just work 9 till 5 Monday to Friday, especially when business announcements from the Chancellor coming out at 5, 6 o'clock at night on a Friday night. The last 2 weekends, we've had covering on the phones and emails to make sure our clients have been supported. So just being there is the biggest tip for you at the moment. Got another message, another direct message from Twitter from Freddie. Should I give my employer some info about furloughing because he is laying off people in the office? So the government put the furlough scheme out there to try and support everyone, and that's the scheme is officially called the Job Retention Scheme. However, there is a slight issue, and you need to understand your employer's cash flow. So at the moment, we don't know when your employer is going to get their money back, and the employer's got to pay that money out up front at the moment for any furloughed leave. So if their cash flow doesn't allow for them to be able to pay the wages and then wait for the money to come back from HMRC, then he may have to lay people off. Obviously, that's not ideal, and the process would be that you could make the claim ideally before you have to make the payment to the employee, but that detail's just not there at the moment. So we need to, as much as the government support is there to help financially, there is a cash flow issue, which is leading to some people being laid off rather than being furloughed. But there's absolutely no harm in passing on details about furloughing and job retention scheme to your employer. Just saying, oh, are you aware of this? Is this something we could be eligible for? He may well have his own reasons for laying people off, centered around cash flow normally, but that's for him to decide, really. But yeah, definitely present all the information to him you can. Tom from Twitter has asked if I can rehire someone I had to let go a couple of months ago who didn't want to fire and furlough them straight away. So if you've laid someone off a couple of months ago, you can't rehire them and furlough them. But if you laid someone off from the 1st of March to today, then you can rehire them and put them back on the payroll and furlough them then. So anyone you're trying to rehire has to have been on the payroll by the 28th of February, according to the guidelines given out last night. And that's basically to make sure there's no fraud going on. So yeah, if you've made someone redundant or laid them off or sacked them, whatever you want to call it, between the 1st of March and today, then you are more than able as an employer to bring them back into the business and put them on furlough. And you can backdate that to the 1st of March as well, or the date that they left on, as long as it's after the 1st of March. Brad from Twitter, I run an online shop. Can we furlough people with kids but not anyone else? Yes. We've got a team member who has got 2 kids who are have been self-isolating since the 1st of March because they're high risk for medical reasons. So we had a chat with her and said, look, we're able to furlough you because you aren't able to work at the moment. So we put her on furlough. So yeah, definitely have a chat with anyone who can't work or would be better off not working, and decide between yourself and them whether you should be furloughing them. And it doesn't matter what sector you're in, any UK payroll business can furlough any of their staff at this time without any issues at the moment. Irene from Twitter direct messaging, I recently went self-employed as a marketer. Is there anything out there for me? Unfortunately, Irene, there's a huge hole of support at the moment. So if by recently you mean you went self-employed from the 19th of April 2019 onwards, there is currently no major support for you. There is universal credits, there is other government support through the benefit systems, but that's really down to a personal scenario, because if you're living with someone who is being paid and living, you may be over the threshold for universal credits, so you won't be able to claim that. But the support where you get 80% of your profits for over 3 months for self-employed, which was announced last week, that is only if you were registered for self-assessments before April 2019, and only if you are able to, if you've submitted a tax return. Now, if you haven't submitted a tax return, sorry, for 1819 yet, which should have been in by 31st of January 2020, you have been given a 4-week extension to get that in and for it to be considered for the grant proposal, the grant system. But as I say, if you started from April 19 to today to go self-employed, unfortunately, there is no support for you out there at the moment. While we're talking about self-employed, though, I'll just touch base on that a bit more. So this grant was released that will cover 80% of your profits as a grant. They have said that it's going to be based over up to 3 years worth of tax returns. So if you've been self-employed for 4 years, for example, you've done a tax return for 18, 19, 17, 18, and 16, 17. They will add those 3 the profits from those 3 tax returns up, divide it by 3, take that number, divide it by 12, and then work out 80% of that number and send you that for 3 months. Payments are expected to be starting to roll out in June. So that should be coming out to you in June. I appreciate that's a while to wait for any income, especially if you've had to stop working entirely or if your work's dried up entirely. With this grant for the self-employed, though, you can continue working and claim the grant. So the grant is taxable income. So at the end of the financial year, you're going to be declaring that money at the top of your accounts with your sales. If you've only been working 1 year, then they'll take your profit from that and divide it by 12 and work out 80% of that 12. The issues are coming in at the moment. The clients are complaining about when you start a new business, 9 out of 10 times in the first year or 2, you make a loss, and quite legitimately as well. You're buying equipment, you're buying time to do learning development, etc. So you make a loss, which means there is 80% of 0 is 0. So if you've made a loss, then there won't be anything coming your way because you've not made a profit. HMRC have very much said, look, this is based on the profit that you've declared and you've paid taxes on. So if you've not made a profit, you're not going to get any financial support. And those that have declared just enough profit just to sit under the tax threshold will be getting very little financial support because, as far as HMRC are aware, you've not made huge amounts of money, and this is 80% of what you've been living off in previous years. So it's not ideal, especially for those that have only just gone into self-employment, but it is what it is at the moment, unfortunately. I know the FSB and Chambers of Commerce and stuff are lobbying the government to make that a more supportive system. They're also lobbying to include the 1920 tax return, which opened up 2 days ago. So as of the 6th of April, you can submit your 1920 tax return. If you are in a position where you maybe do a refund for your tax return and you're struggling at the moment because you're self-employed, I'd strongly recommend getting a tax return in ASAP. HMRC have advised that at the moment their repayments for tax refunds haven't changed. They're still trying to get them out as quickly as they can. So that may be a way of getting a little bit more income into your bank and helping your cash flow a bit. Right, I've got another message from Derek from Twitter. I'm working from home as a contractor, getting paid for an umbrella company. Am I affected by anything? That's very much a scenario-based thing. If you're being paid through the umbrella company as a payee and the umbrella company decide to furlough you, then they can support you. They can give you 80% of your wage. However, if you're invoicing them and they're paying your invoices, then you're looking at the self-employed income side of things. So it's just working out how you're paid through your umbrella company at the moment. But if they're still paying you and you're still working for them, then your scenario has not changed. You're still going to have the same financial income. If they've stopped sending you work, then you need to work out if you're getting a pay slip and paying tax and national insurance is taken off your pay before it's given to you and given to HMRC. If so, then they can furlough you. If not, and they're just paying an invoice for you, then you're looking at the self-employed system, as I stated earlier. We've got Angie, who is from Twitter DM. I run a gym as a franchisee. The franchisee is offering no help, but I have to close up, obviously. Is there any support for my business, or do I need to wind up? If you're a franchisee, you're going to be operating under a couple of different models. So you could be a self-employed person or in a partnership, or you could be a limited company. So it's looking at what support's out there for the self-employed people or for the limited companies and working out if there's anything available for you there. What I would say is talk to the gym franchise, because I would suggest to them, as I've suggested to many of my clients, you are better getting some income than no income. And if I can pay you some income today and I can make up for it later in the year once things are back to normal, then that's a much better scenario to be in. Whereas there's a lot of landlords and business franchises and stuff that are saying, no, we want all our money or disappear, which is a really short-sighted way of doing it, because you're going to have A, reputational damage, but B, you're going to have less income in the long run because you've got less franchisees, or you've not got a tenant to your business property. We've got a message from Sue from Twitter. How do I process furlough? Now, this is the big unknown. At the moment, what the most accountants and bookkeepers are doing is when they do the payroll, they are doing 2 lines on the payslip. So normally you just have salary, X amount of pounds. We are advising you have salary, X amount of pounds, furlough, X amount of pounds. This is assuming someone's furloughed and had a salary in the same pay period. So that way we've got the detail ready for when HMRC launch their system. As I say, HMRC haven't launched this system yet. They are building and testing it. What they have said is you need to know what the breakdown of furlough pay is, because that's what you've got to claim back. And so that's why it makes sense that if you've got a payroll where someone's got a payslip that's got some of the time they were in employment and normality was there, then you furloughed them, then it makes sense to split that out into 2 lines. So A, the employee knows what they're doing. B, you can see what they're doing, and C, it's really easy to evidence to HMRC. What we do know about the application process is that they will be giving you, you will be logging into a portal. They'll be asking for your payee details, your bank details, each staff member that's on furlough, and how much furlough pay they've had. We don't know much more than that. So it is important to keep those records. And what we also know is once this system's launched, you can apply up to once every 3 weeks. So if you put an application in today for your furlough pay, you won't be able to, for March, for example, you won't be able to claim again for another 3 weeks. If you putting in an application today for March's pay, and tomorrow you're due to pay April's payout, or the first week of April's pay, you can put a claim in for that because it's under the class of imminently. But the final details we haven't yet seen, and what HMRC class as imminent and what the average public will class as imminent could be very different. So that's the process as we know it. We'll see what happens when it comes in. We've got another message from Lord from Twitter DM. Can I get a new business loan on the government scheme as a self-employed person? Yes, in theory. The business loans that the government has launched have been somewhat controversial so far. Last week, the Chancellor had to have a chat with all the banks and tell them to be more supportive. The banks were wanting personal guarantees, they were wanting trading history, they're wanting cash flow forecasts for 3 years. Overall, they were being very demanding on any business, but especially the self-employed businesses. That kind of information isn't necessarily something you'd have unless you are proactive with your accounts and you have something like QuickBooks and that you keep that up to date on a daily or weekly basis. That can then be plugged into different softwares like Float, which will give you a 3-year forecast straight away with a bit of tweaking. But a lot of self-employed people and limited businesses that are quite new don't have that set up yet. So if you do want to apply for a business loan, in theory, yes, you're entitled to apply for it. There's been a very high volume of applications and a very, very low volume of success rate so far. But we've not seen this week's figures yet, and things were due to have changed as of Friday last week. So we may see more support. The other major issue with the business continuity loan, which this is actually the banks haven't got the staff to support it. So they're getting huge volumes of inquiries and applications, and they've just not got the staff in place to be able to facilitate that level of inquiry. So they are taking potentially weeks and weeks to get back to people. So it's not a quick process, and it's not a guaranteed process, the business support loan. So do it by all means, apply for it. You may well get somewhere with it, but don't expect it to be in the bank within 5 or 6 working days to save your business. You're going to need to be looking at other opportunities as well for cash flow, whilst looking at that as a long-term option. Okay, so we're into our last 5 minutes. The Perry from Twitter has said, I had to wind up business because of all the craziness. I'm looking to rebuild by starting a new business. What's the ideal setup? Out of times like this, some incredibly successful businesses have been launched. During the last recession, we had things like WhatsApp came about. So there will always be some new businesses start up and do exceptionally well out of this whole, out of any crisis. Not by being anything unethical, they've just got an idea and the time was right. So anything online is a really good business model to have at the moment, because people are now able to buy online and stuff, and it's not being restricted by a lockdown. We've seen quite a lot of our online clients doing very well over the last few weeks. So yeah, online would be my top suggestion at the moment. Okay, so we'll take one last question, which is Rory from Twitter. What's your top 3 tips to survive as a small business limited company? The first top tip is cash flow. Cash is king at the moment. If your bank account's empty, you can't pay anyone, especially yourself. You can't pay your own bills. Get some cash in through whatever schemes are available that are there to support. Try and trade. Try and convert your business to an online facility if you can. But cash is the winning one. Right. Okay. We've got time for just one more. Tracy from Facebook page. I have a client who has self-employed income, which has been 40%, 44%, and 55% over the 16, 17, 18, 19, 19, 20. So falls short of the 50% required. Do you know if they will not be eligible for certain, and should he go down the universal credit route? Right. If they're on universal credit, if they try and make a claim for universal credit, it should not impact on the self-employed grant, because universal credit is based on the month's income at the time. So when he then gets the grant, he won't get any universal credit because he's had the other income. He may be eligible for some grant from the self-employed side of things in 1819, if that's when he had his 55% income and it was a profit. But if he didn't make a profit and with that 55%, then there won't be any support for him there either. But it's certainly, HMRC will contact him if he's eligible. It's not a job of us contacting them. And the government have been really clear with that. HMRC will contact anyone that's eligible between now and June and make some payments. After that, there may be an opportunity to appeal and to get some further support. But as it stands, they'll contact you. So with that question answered, we're going to wrap up, and we've got Alex on at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Alex from Save the High Street, who engaged with over 25,000 high street businesses, has a 12-week COVID-19 end-to-end plan to help high street businesses on tomorrow at 8:30 using the same channels. So tune in to find out how Save the High Street might be able to help you. My name's Johann, and I'm from JGBC. Thank you very much for your time.